Yes, I am reviewing 2 episodes together again. This time we're talking about The Right Way and Here to Help. Definitely the turning point of this ending saga. I do want to let you guys know, though, at the start of this one, that the next one is going to be a double review as well. I don't necessarily need to make these double reviews, it's just it takes less time for me to record and edit them this way, as I don't have to render as many individual videos. I also want to warn you guys, I may seem a little less enthused than normal today. I get migraines, and I have an absolutely terrible migraine today. It's just so bad. But I'm still gonna push through these star reviews. I'm gonna have to put off the review of Batman v Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that I teased a couple days ago until Monday, because I am actually recording these the day of their posting. I scripted them this morning too. That's how behind I am at this point. But yeah, I'm gonna push that review back a little bit, give myself some time to rest, but I am gonna get these star reviews done for you today, at the very least. Moving on, though, to The Right Way. It picks up immediately where the previous episode left off. Eclipsa is on the defensive against the Solarian warrior, and just when it seems that she might be killed, or at the very least marked the same way that Globgor was, Star shows up and protects her, and I guess she picked up some allies on the way somehow, because these guys are with her. They all work together to fight against the Solarian warrior, and they're pretty ineffectual. I'm not really surprised. I was kind of hoping that they would surprise me by having them actually manage to accomplish something, but once again, these guys don't really do much against the season-ending big villain. And if I sound a little annoyed by that, it's because I am. Their scenes fighting against the thing, while they were cool looking, ended up just being time filler. And we didn't really see any actiony stuff from them that we haven't seen from them before. Still, seeing all of them defeated and cut by the sword and similarly marked, the Solarian warrior gets several more people, does inspire Star to expand her rainbow gauntlet things into like full rainbow avatar armor around her entire body, putting her on equal footing with the Solarian warrior. And it seems like she might actually be able to beat it until a botched attempt to help by Eclipsa's guards and ends up knocking out Star's spell, but not actually defeating the warrior. At which point Eclipsa has to swoop in and use... She calls it out as the spell with no name in its casting, but I'm going to talk about that in a second, because I think it might be something slightly different. And ends up destroying the Solarian warrior utterly. I'm pretty sure she even killed whoever was in it. It wasn't actually Mina, as we find out in a second when Marco comes in and informs them that Mina is still on her way, that this was just an advanced scout, and that Mina is on her way with a whole buttload more warriors. But I am pretty sure that whoever was in there, they dead. About the spell, though, if you allow me a quick mini theory. Yes, Eclipsa did call it out as the spell with no name when she cast it, and it did have the cool spooky butterfly effect, but the actual destruction effect was different. We have, at least we assume, seen the spell with no name twice now, prior to this. Once when Moon seemingly used it on Toffee, and it caused his regenerated finger to crumble to dust soon after. And again in the spell dimension, where its destruction effect also was very crumble to dusty. Moon was also able to aim the spell with pinpoint precision and control it very easily, at least seemingly. The spell that Eclipsa cast here, though, had a melty effect and easily went out of control, destroying a whole bunch of stuff behind its target. And while that does line up pretty well with what the other spells from Eclipsa's spell room said it might do if it ever got loose, I do think it's interesting that those visuals don't line up with other instances of the spell that we've seen. Especially since the spell with no name is locked away. Like, maybe that means that Eclipsa can still call on it, but maybe it doesn't. And now it's possible that Eclipsa, just having a much higher magical potential than Moon, when she casts the spell, its effects are different and more devastating, but it's also possible that we are supposed to assume that this is a different, similar spell. Maybe Solaria's Total Annihilation spell, which a lot of people have been theorizing the spell with no name, the Eclipsa version, is derived from. Maybe just like Eclipsa didn't mean to turn Meteora back into a baby when she used that big finisher on her, she actually accidentally called up her mother's total annihilation spell when trying to call upon a different, less powerful, less dangerous spell. Possibly in part because her own spells captured the spell with no name and locked it away. I know that's a bit more of an aside than I usually slip into one of these reviews. I still thought that was an interesting theory that I wanted to share with you guys, and I don't know when else I'm going to have the chance to do it. All of that said, whichever spell Eclipsa just used, it has left her wiped out. She doesn't have the strength to cast anymore, so heading into the next episode, they need a new strategy for dealing with the butt-ton of warriors that are coming towards them. And so the remnants of Eclipsa's guard and council, which now includes Marco and Buff Frog, and even Moon, when she shows up offering help, tries to come up with additional strategies. Mina gives them a time limit. She leaves behind this chicken thing and says that when it crows, she'll return and expect Eclipsa's surrender. So, while River is off helping Globgor and the other injured parties, attempting to get them to the Magic Spring, I think it was called, because apparently the curse that they've been afflicted with can be cured there. The best that Eclipsa is able to come up with for dealing with Mina is that if she can find the strength to cast the same big finisher spell again on Mina this time, maybe the others will scatter. It's at about this time that my least favorite thing so far in these last few episodes happens. And that's saying something considering what happens with Moon in just a second. But we'll talk about that in just a second. Star volunteers to go off with Marco. It's the dumbest freaking thing. She volunteers to go off with Marco to put some animals out to pasture so that they won't be harmed in this conflict, as an excuse to get him alone and talk through their feelings for each other and solidify them as an actual couple. And this is not the time for that. Holy crap. And Star as a character, she's at a point in her character development where she would know that. She wouldn't do this. It's just so stupid. Like, I've been very forgiving of all the relationship drama stuff up to this point, because so far, when it came down to it, when there was other shit to get done, the characters dropped it and got shit done. But here, Star is walking away from a crisis situation to smooch a boy. She's not that person. She might have been that person back in season 1, but she is not that person anymore, and it makes me so mad that she did this here. I understand why she did it, because in a couple episodes, she's presented with a choice, which will separate her from Marco forever, and it has a little teeny tiny bit more impact if the two of them are already technically dating when she makes that choice, or is presented with that choice, rather. I don't think she's actually going to make that choice. But there had to be a better way to incorporate it into the story than Star just walking away from a crisis and leaving other people to deal with it, when her entire story this season has been that she can't do that anymore. Her sense of responsibility has grown so much. Anyway, though, while she's gone, we do get a scene between Eclipsa and Moon, where Moon actually opens the monster castle gate, which they closed to keep Mina out, at least for a little while longer, and then demands that Eclipsa surrender the throne to her. And when Star returns in a little while, she finds Moon and Eclipsa in a magical standoff. Because it turns out Moon made all the additional Solarian warriors and is behind this specific attack. Where do I begin with this? Like, seriously, what is it with TV shows recently ruining heroic queens? Yes, I just threw shade at Game of Thrones. Let's move on. Here we have a shocking moment, sure, but one that I feel actually violates Moon's characterization this season. All season, well, she has been offering shelter to people who are arguably bigoted against Eclipsa and the monsters, and therefore, I think hasn't been making her best life choices. That is something that I'm going to talk about at some point. The fact that I do think Moon, in her own way, was doing real harm to Eclipsa's attempts to become a good ruler. But all season, Moon has been insisting that she doesn't have that responsibility anymore to protect everyone, and the implication has been that she doesn't want it. Every time people have tried to look to her as an authority figure, she has been super dismissive of that. And not in like a passive-aggressive kind of way that suggested that she thinks that if she's in charge, things will go better. She legitimately doesn't seem to want the responsibility of the throne anymore. And yet here she is trying to take it from Eclipsa by force. And yes, they do try to explain this away in the next episode. I'll go ahead and just explain it now. I do think it's in the next episode, at least. I don't think they told us this at the very end of this one. I could be wrong. It doesn't matter. Moon does explain that Mina was going to launch an attack one way or another, and that Moon thinks that by backing Mina from the background and supporting her from the background, that she has some amount of control over Mina and her soldiers that she can use to stop them from going too far. And that would make sense if Moon hadn't created a whole bunch more Solarian warriors. Like, yeah, she thinks that she can take their powers away if they get uppity, but she's dealing with magic that she doesn't really understand here. And either way, spells take a second to cast, and these things are incredibly powerful. What kind of damage could an army of these things do in the couple seconds it takes for her to take the power back? It was so colossally irresponsible for her to create these additional warriors, whether she thought she had some amount of control over them or not. It's just so stupid that it's out of character, even with the explanation for her actions standing as an explanation for her actions. It's so stupid and out of character that I have trouble believing that she would make this choice. I will say, though, that I did kind of suspect that this was the case the moment that Moon showed up at the castle, because in an earlier scene between Eclipsa and Jennah in Globgor's room, the room where they were having him lay injured, at least, we did see that Eclipsa had to actually look up what the curse mark was, despite the fact that her mother created it. Meanwhile, Moon rolls in with knowledge of how to cure it, just right there in the forefront of her mind, as if she's already done the research, as if she was already expecting this to happen. And I thought in the moment, wow, that really wouldn't make sense. This must just be a plot convenience thing. There's no way that Moon's actually behind this attack. But it turns out she was. It's just, it bugs me a lot. And I don't see how Moon's character can ever recover from this. Like, sure, she's not the person who's literally attacking in those giant mech suits with those evil curse swords, but she is the mastermind behind the attack, and as far as I'm concerned, that's just as bad, especially considering what those curse marks actually do. In that scene where Eclipsa has to look up what the curse marks do, we find out that they will eventually spread across a person's entire body and then destroy them utterly. Man, Solaria just had a thing for destroying people utterly, didn't she? That means that not only are they painful and debilitating, but they're lethal. And we actually do see in the next episode, Quirky, the little smushy guy, dies from this. Like, straight up dies. He's gone. And Moon is partially responsible for that. Like, overall, I enjoyed these two episodes quite a bit, because they did further the plot a lot, and they were fun to look at, and the action was cool. But, man, these episodes feel messy the more I think and talk about them. I really do think that Moon needs a better reason for why she did this if she's going to be redeemable by the time this story is over, and I just don't think we're gonna get that better reason. I think the reason we got is it. Like, what happened to Moon learning to trust her own daughter? Star trusts Eclipsa and Globgor. Moon should, based on her prior characterization, trust them simply by virtue of her daughter trusting them. Unless she didn't actually ever come to trust Star and was just pretending that she did, or had just convinced herself that she did. I don't even know. I don't know what to think of this person anymore. My entire understanding of this character has changed, and I am questioning so many poignant moments in this character's arc, whether or not they were truly genuine. And it's not as if this revelation is just recontextualizing the character for me. I honestly think that they're going back on her characterization with this, and that does upset me. Not quite as much as with Star, because she's the main character. And I do think that they were going back on her characterization too when they had her run off away from the fight to mac on Marco. But this still does anger me quite a bit. Quite a bit more than I think it probably should, because this is still just a kid's cartoon. But you guys know me at this point. I get worked up by these things. I'm also not sure how I feel about the continued message that when Star is fighting someone, people shouldn't help her in a season that seems to be setting up that Muni is going to transition to something more resembling a democracy, a season which has been setting up that people as a group are more powerful than any individual. I mean, like I said before, Star was inspired to don her rainbow avatar armor thing by seeing that all of her friends really needed her, and I think, was it Pony that gave an emotional speech or something? So it's not as if she was entirely alone. They were with her in spirit, I guess, but she was still solo fighting this thing when they could have written away that she didn't have to solo fight this thing. Like, what if her friends had, like, joined with her? Like, they had gotten pieces of armor around them, which had then merged together into, like, a giant Megazord armor with all of them in it together. How cool would that have been? And it would have fit with the themes of the season, you know what I mean? I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about this episode. Even scripting out this review, and by scripting I mean writing bullet points of what to say. I still haven't quite collected all of my thoughts on this episode into a coherent picture of my feelings about it, if that makes sense. So as per usual, I'd like to know, what do you guys think of these two episodes if you have seen them? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over in my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.